wanted to make sure I wasn't, I was compliant with the first two things I read.
You and me both.
Microphone.
Aaron, cut it off. Okay, if everybody, you have me, council meeting's now in session. And we'll start off with number 2. First reading of an ordinance to amend the Somerville Unified Development Ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I have a motion on that. I would like to introduce a proposed amendment to the section 3.6.1 to read as follows. To make the following changes in paragraph, the first paragraph under subsection, the lead-in part, to strike the word license is required. In the first sentence, strike mobile vending permit issues by the town and staff, and A. In the second sentence, to strike the words permit certificates, and paragraph 2, strike the entire paragraph. Paragraph 3, strike the entire paragraph. Paragraph 4, strike staff and substitute of Somerville Police Department. Paragraph 5, and strike the entire paragraph. Paragraph 6, strike, quote, and recycling receptacles in the first sentence, and strike and or recycling receptacles. Paragraph 7, in the last sentence, strike have its mobile vendor permit revoked and substitute not be allowed to operate within the Somerville town limits. Paragraph 8, strike the entire paragraph, and 9, strike items F and H. 10, strike the word other. Mr. Mayor, Council, these changes would allow food truck operators to operate anywhere in the town as long as they obtain a business license to comply with DHEC regulations, and will eliminate the permit requirements while still requiring compliance with certain additional town imposed regulations.
I will second your motion.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor and a second.
For discussion, Walter, instead of all that, this ordinance that we were given this morning, what if we just strike section A?
Give me a second here, look at that. I'm trying to find out exactly where you are on that, Bob.
He's talking about the thing that was sent to you this morning. There's a copy of it in that pile. And
Here you go.
Oh, the one that Jesse did?
yeah, and there's a copy for everyone.
To strike. Okay, you're not reading the original ordinance, you're reading from the proposed amendment, which is not yet before council?
Yes.
Okay. That states the residential area in question must be an established subdivision for which the town has received an HOA or other neighborhood association approval letter requesting the allowance of food trucks to operate within the subdivision and designating a specific common area for each of their setups. That would still leave item B, which has highly, in my opinion, highly restrictive hours to operate. Item C puts, in my opinion, an unreasonable restriction on the length of time that the food vendor could operate in a specific location. And Bob, I just don't think that the problem has arisen through overregulation. And I don't think we can solve the problem by leaving those regulations in effect and then add more regulations to it. I think we've dug a hole, and the amendment proposed by staff today, which is the first time I saw it, is digging the hole deeper, in my opinion.
I've got a question on B. Allowed operating hours for vendors shall be between 9 a.m. and 1/2 hour before sunset.
Yeah, Aaron, that's as I mentioned, I don't think that those hours are realistic. The sun sets different hours depending on the season, and sunset can come pretty early in the winter, and to close up a half an hour before sunset, you're talking about maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, you make a very good point. I agree with you there. But my point is, if you might want to consider a cap on nighttime activity, 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. or something like that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think if a problem arises that they can be addressed by this council, at some point in time after COVID started and got serious, apparently town staff made a decision not to enforce the terms of the portion of the UDO that affects food trucks. I wasn't aware that happened. I don't have a problem with doing that. I am sort of surprised that the decision wasn't made at the council level to suspend the operation of an ordinance. But apparently we've gone for maybe roughly a year without enforcing any aspect of this ordinance. And I would be curious to see if there were any problems that arose with the food trucks during that time period. If there weren't, what we're trying to do is solve a non-existent problem. I'm not saying they shouldn't be have business licenses. They're subject to DHEC regulations, which are pretty stringent. And I don't, these are small business people. They're not making a lot of money. They're operating on a shoestring. And I can't see the justification in singling them out to throw a bunch of over regulations. I mean, I just don't believe we need to have a permit, which is basically just permission from the government to do some normal activity for everything we do. And the UDO as a whole is just inundated with permits. There are probably 50 or 60 permits in there to do stuff. And I think we're over-regulating. It's hurting people. The people have brought that to our attention. And I really don't think we can fix this with more regulations. I think we need to undo some of the regulations that we've got.
I agree with you, Alder, but I think even something like a 10 o'clock cutoff would be reasonable for people who live in a cul-de-sac, and then that at least gives somebody the authority to say, hey guys, you need to go home.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but
You could add that to your amendment, Alder.
okay, I'll add that to my amendment.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask a question. Mr. Bailey, as part of the business licensing process, one of the other things they have to do is get a fire inspection.
Yeah.
So are you comfortable with that also being in there as part of the business license? You've got to get that.
Yeah.
And your DHEC approval. So they have to have all of that. Okay.
Yeah. I just don't think we need a separate permit for a business to operate when they've already got a business license. And there's been no indication. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I can be corrected. I think Jesse's going to get it.
So I think.
Well, just point of order, the proposed amendment that was given to us this morning by staff is not before this council. We've got a motion and a second on Mr. Bailey's motion. I think we should vote on it.
And that's what we discussed, is Mr. Bailey's.
Well, but we keep talking about this other provision that's just not before us. But if we want to keep talking about it, I've got a lot of problems with it. I just like to just the rest of the discussion to be on the motion before us.
I'm okay with we're going to add a certain time at night to keep people from complaining about at like 10 o'clock. If we agree to that, then I think it's something that I can go with.
And again, if any problems arise with my proposed amendment, they can be fixed. We can come back here and fix it, but I'm not aware of a problem. The only problem I'm aware of is that people like these food trucks and who all of a sudden, without a whole lot of advance notice, apparently pull the rug out from under them, and they've had events scheduled for this weekend that they can no longer do. And I just don't think people ought to be treated that way.
Any other questions?
I do have one question, Mr. Mayor. So I haven't seen your amendment, so I'm not real sure what all the details are. So we're going to allow food trucks in commercial and residential areas at any time, at any place with no permit. That's what your amendment is proposing.
With the exception of the 10 o'clock closing, Bob.
Okay. So anytime, anywhere, anytime, anywhere with a 10 o'clock limit, they have to have a business license, DHEC, and their fire inspection yearly. So that's what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of this signify by raising your right hand, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carried. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is approval of the RFP for the Somerville Ashley River Preserve.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, before we leave the topic of the food trucks, since at some point the ordinance was suspended and then it was, staff notified people involved that it was back in force again, I would like the council to consider making passing a resolution to continue the non-enforcement of the food truck ordinance until we can have second reading on the
I'll
bill.
second that.
Okay, motion on the floor to continue the non-enforcement of the food trucks in a second.
I just want to say I agree with the motion that Mr. Bailey has made and Mr. Jackson has seconded. Not everybody watches town council that closely or follows social media that follows town council. So if we do pass this resolution, I would ask that an email that was sent from the town to various food truck, either operators or neighborhood organizers of food truck events. I believe that the email went out either earlier this week. That a follow-up email be sent to the same people who received that email from the town, telling them of this action and basically rescinding the email that was sent earlier.
So, Mr. Parker, could we not have, with the adoption of Mr. Bailey's, could we not have just invoked the pending ordinance doctrine with that motion and second, and then been able to operate under that pending ordinance as it adopted? We need a copy of it for staff and everybody to operate under, but could we not have done that?
Well, I'm trying to think, pending ordinance doctrine, I don't know if it would apply in this situation.
Well, there's not a resolution on the agenda either, so we're just trying to figure out how to make it happen without.
There's no resolution on the agenda, but I think it falls within the purview of what we're discussing here with the ordinance. It deals directly with the enforcement or non-enforcement of this ordinance. And we're not plowing any new ground here. It's been that way up until a few days ago. We hadn't enforced it. We're just continuing what's been the status quo.
Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about pending ordinance doctrine, I mean, we've given first reading to an ordinance to repeal the UDO in its entirety. I mean, we want to utilize the pending ordinance doctrine on that first reading, so we just won't have a UDO. I think the resolution is probably the cleaner way to go.
I think I see what Ms. Vance is saying.
Just trying to get it done.
Pending ordinance doctrine and food truck operator, we had first reading. It's the same thing. We put people on notice when they come in with a set of plans, and we've got plans that are changing what they thought they were going to do. They would be subject to that pending ordinance doctrine. This is sort of in reverse.
has to be a part of the motion, am I correct? To invoke it, you have to, it doesn't automatically happen unless council invokes it.
I don't,
I think it's that pending ordinance doctrine is a, it's a case law theory, so.
Sorry to
Not
complicate, I was
stat-
just trying to
not
find an easier
statutory
way to
law,
do it.
But it's,
I just think it would be cleaner to make this resolution and instructing an email to go out, rescinding the previous email, so people are on notice of what we're doing here today. The pending ordinance doctrine is a legal theory based on case law. Technically, we've given first reading to a repeal of the UDO in its entirety, so I don't know why. I mean, which pending ordinance doctrine are we going to rely on?
well, cut to the chase of it is, I think that the administrator can instruct the department head to do it. I mean, I think council has spoken clearly what they want to happen.
You would think.
And I think that's gonna happen even without a resolution.
Yeah, I'm just trying, if we want to do a resolution, that's great. Y'all can do that. I'm just trying to find a way to make it happen as quickly as possible so that today, if someone wants to have a food truck tomorrow, this is what they're operating under, just to try
that
to.
was the intent of what I was trying to say.
I think if that email gets sent before noon today to the people that received the email previously, then problem solved for this weekend.
I think that if we get out of this meeting by noon, then that will definitely happen. Or I would instruct.
That's the first thing I would agree.
I think I would
Let's at least
instruct.
vote on it.
Yeah. I
Getting
would-
out by noon?
Yeah, that'd be great. I can instruct Mary also to just put something out too, so that everybody knows, and anybody who, puts something out on all of our social media so that everybody knows.
I am sure that everybody is following this from the emails and posts I've seen. If we manage to raise our hands, they will know within about 3 or 4 minutes.
So motion and second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carried.
Can someone state to me exactly what the resolution is so that I can communicate that correctly?
The resolution would be that the town council continues the policy of non-enforcement of section of the UDO pertaining to food trucks until such time as a second reading is held on the pending ordinance involving that.
The entire section for commercial or residential property. Is that what everybody wants?
Well, it's what
We wanted to
doing.
go back to the way staff
We were still enforcing
interpreted.
it. We were still enforcing it for commercial. We just weren't for residential.
How did we know?
See, I don't know what town staff was, I don't know what town staff was doing because I didn't know they were doing that until all hell broke loose with these people complaining about the food trucks. And I think that should have been a decision of town council, or at least we should know about it, that it was under consideration, that it happened. I didn't know, but all during COVID, we weren't enforcing this thing. If I'd been told, it wouldn't have bothered me. The only thing that would have bothered me is that the town council did not make the decision. Somebody at the staff level did, and I didn't know about it.
So we're going to non-enforce for food trucks in residential areas.
We're going to not enforce the food trucks anywhere.
Anyway, okay.
Anything else under food trucks? Okay, now we'll move on to the RFP for Somerville on the Ash River Preserve.
Mayor, may I ask Amy to come up and present what she's found?
Good morning, Mayor, council members. The RFP for the Herbert H. Jessen Boat Landing improvements was posted. It closed May 14th. We received one bid from IPW Construction Group. I sent a copy of that to everyone. The total for that was $868,673. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Amy, that did come out under pretty substantially what we thought we would be paying.
Yes, sir. With the estimates Keene had provided us, it's pretty much right on where we thought it would be.
And you've checked with people that have done this project before.
Yes, sir. I checked with the town of James Island, Dorchester County, and Charleston County.
Mr. Mayor, the agenda says approval of the RFP, but the RFP's already gone out and we've got one bid in, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So would the appropriate motion be to approve accepting the bid that we received? If so, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the RFP and a second.
Who seconded?
I think I did.
You did.
Any discussion?
We have one thing on timing that council needs to decide on.
Yes, so from the time they start construction to the end of the project, if we close the boat ramp completely, it would be approximately 120 days. If we want to try to phase it, we're looking closer to probably 180 days. Regardless, there's going to be 1 month where we know the boat ramp is going to have to be closed, so we can kind of choose when we want that to be. With the exception of February. February would not be a great time to have that boat ramp closed just with asphalt. So if council wants to pick a month that they think would be the best, we can try to plan for that. The only thing we have to work with is we know for permitting design, it's going to take approximately 4 months. So the soonest we'd want to look is probably November just to be safe.
Amy, tell me what you just said about February.
We would not want the month that it's closed to be in February just because of asphalt. That's probably the 1 month they would not want that month to be closed. Too cold, right?
Can they do it in December?
I think December would be fine.
Because you got Christmas, it's cold anyway, and it's not a really hot fishing time, so.
So we would, y'all would prefer that we phase it and close for the month around of December.
I would if council agrees.
Yeah, that's good as any.
It's good.
We can do that.
Okay, we're gonna put that in the motion.
We had a motion in a second.
Okay. And to close it in January, December. Okay, all of this, all in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carried. Okay. We'll move on down to the,
Right?
yes, sir.
I think we skipped over the properties, selling the hotel property.
Number 3.
Oh, okay, I thought we would do that at the other meeting.
Oh, we're going to have a second meeting to take that up, correct?
Oh, excuse me, I beg your pardon.
Yeah,
Do you need to vote to postpone it or not take it up or?
No, we can do just like we planned.
you said around 11, right?
Yeah.
It's 11,
Okay,
the meeting is at 11:30.
okay. All right, then we move on down to number 5, discussion of the 2022 budget.
Mr. Parker, do you want to explain what's happening? Because I feel like some of the council members are a little bit confused. I don't know
Why
if
are
they
we
didn't-
waiting until 11:30 to vote on this? I'm fine if that's what y'all do, because I'm not gonna be here, but
Something happened with the communication Beth was sending out, the attachment of the agenda did not make it. I didn't see it until it was too late to make the 10 o'clock cutoff for you.
oh, okay.
So we just did it as quickly as we could. The original wording just had to talk about approving the memorandum, which we already done. We need to actually approve the sale. I have first reading on the sale.
Okay.
anybody have any, I guess we're on the last item, the budget. Does anybody have any questions about the budget that we can answer before Andrew leaves us today?
I'd like to ask Amy a question about the assistant project manager. I know we've got one employee that's been doing most of the repairs on town properties. And you say you think this individual will be able to assist him in getting things done for the town that we do in-house?
Yes, sir. So right now, we currently have one assistant projects manager. We do not have a projects manager, so he is just a one-man team. And when you look, we maintain 16 parks and facilities. I did a quick count this morning, and in those parks and facilities, we have 18 buildings, and that's not including storage sheds or pump houses, things like that. We've got 15 pavilions and gazebos. My list for him is so long. And right now, a lot of the projects, he needs a second person just to give him a hand. So we're stealing staff from the grounds crew, from, the small engine mechanic shop, wherever we can grab somebody that's free that day to help him. But it would just be wonderful to have a second person that's dedicated so we can try to get caught up on some of the projects that we have outstanding.
Do you still, do you envision at times that you would still have to outsource some of the larger projects?
Yes, sir, I do. Even with two of them, the amount of work what they're trying to maintain, the facilities to keep up. All the boardwalks and bridges, not just in parks across town that we maintain. He said the other day, he's like, "You've given me 5 years worth of work." And I was like, and that's just what I've told you about. There's just, the list is never ending. And as soon as we're able to do one project, there's another one.
Well, I think it's a good idea because I know when you came on board, you saw some of the problems that were extant because like the ladies' restroom at Doty and that sort of thing. And because we were scuffling to do it in-house. And sometimes you've just got to go outside, I think. But all right, I think it's a good idea. I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. It looks like this budget is planning to spend $43,054,987, and we're showing revenues of that amount to, meet our constitutional requirement that this be a balanced budget. But our total general fund revenues are listed at some 37.7 million, and then it's showing total transfers in an additional $5.3 million to bring the budget into balance. From what source is the 5.3 million being transferred in? I watched as much of a budget retreat as I could online, and I just don't think that was ever addressed.
Yes, sir. So 2.7 million of it will be financing. And then there's hospitality tax projects. Anything that we could fund from hospitality tax that was allowable. There's 85,000. Let me get to the bottom here. Sorry. There's 2.7 million from financing, 285,000 from hospitality tax. There's impact fees. There's ARP funding, and then there are grants that we know that we have for certain projects. And then there are also other sources like the TIF and can't remember what any of that other source was.
Can I get that broken down to make sure it adds up to 5.3 million?
Yes, sir. So in the last PowerPoint we gave you guys, the last 3 pages of it go through all of the projects and allocate them to different funding sources. So they're very clearly laid out to all of the requests, and then the requests that are funded, it goes through and lays out which funding source they go to. Andrew did a really good job putting together the spreadsheet to try to explain it.
Still asking.
Yes,
how-
sir, I can get it for you.
Yeah.
Now?
Not right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I have some more questions.
Just to make a copy of this for you. Do you have a copy of the
I have a question. I have the floor and I have a question.
Well,
Looking at property taxes, we've got, we're showing $15,652,860 in property taxes. And the budget breakdown that we were provided, I guess, had 5 different sources of property taxes: prior year's taxes, real property taxes, vehicle property taxes, homestead taxes, heavy equipment rental tax, and it has a number by it. And it looks to be in an Excel program. So I just kind of assumed that this all added up, but when I'm eyeballing it, I realized it was off. So when I add them, I was a liberal arts major. When I add those 5 figures, I come up with 13,879,000, or a difference, or a shortfall of over 1.7 million. Is there just another line that didn't make it to this spreadsheet?
I'm not sure what spreadsheet or which one is it.
It was the only detailed budget breakdown that I'm aware of council
You're talking about the
ever
detail,
receiving.
not the budget presentation, but the actual detail.
What matters, yeah.
No, I can't see what you're looking at. I don't know.
Okay. Because when I did the same thing for licenses, instead of 11.5 million, I came up with 10,840,000, a difference of a shortfall of 659,000. And when I did it for intergovernmental revenues, intergovernmental revenues, instead of 3.3 million, I got 2.8 million. So those three, when I add what's in the spreadsheet, which I thought the Excel just added it for you, but when I add it, I come up with a $3 million shortfall instead of 37.7 million is more like 34.8 million. And maybe you just didn't make it to this Excel, but it just appears like the budget's about 3 million out of balance.
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at the spreadsheet you're looking at. I don't have it. I don't have my Excels with me, so I'll take a look.
Maybe we can Mr. Parker, when we re-adjourn at 11:30, can we take up something from this meeting? Can council move to suspend discussion of this issue in this meeting and continue it at the next meeting at 11:30, which would maybe get some time to somebody actually add this stuff up?
Yes, what I think the mayor was going to do is just actually recess
Okay.
this meeting, call the other one to order, get that one done,
Okay.
adjourn it, and then come back to this.
Okay.
So it can work either way you want to.
Okay. Well, hopefully some stuff just got left out, because I don't know how we could make $3 million worth of math errors and have a English and political science major find it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't have it in front of me what you're looking at. I can take a look. I'll get everything added up.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you print stuff, it just doesn't print out properly. So
Okay.
I will take a look and have it for you.
Could we, in conjunction with the budget, get some kind of a presentation similar to what Amy did with the person they want in parks, with the other new positions that would be created, other than the, I think the police and fire, which I think were presented at the budget retreat, but there are about 3 others, I think.
Yes, sir. Would you like them to do that now while everybody's here?
We seem to have about almost an hour to wait for this other meeting,
Right.
so it might be.
Let's see, who is what? Beth, yeah, Jesse's here, so she could come talk about the planner position, and then Lenny is running around right there, so we can have Lenny talk about his position. So.
Okay, the position I'm requesting is a planner 1 position. It is a position we already have the job description for, we just don't have anything filled in it right now. So requesting to add that. The reason for that is because of the increase in development we've seen continually over the years. We've approved 3 or 4 major PUDs in the last few years that are going to require a lot of staff time for review and approvals of permits and that sort of thing. And so in order to keep on top of customer service and the response time that people are used to seeing from us, we need another person to be able to do that. We're just going to have too much on top of us things are going to get
waylaid and we're going to start getting complaints. Because right now we're pretty much at capacity with what we can handle. So these other subdivisions coming online, as not much really is going offline because most of the ones we already had approved are already kind of finishing up, it's gonna put us where we're not going to be able to keep up with the demand unless we have another person to help with that.
Okay. How many people would that give you altogether?
How many people would that give me altogether? So that would give me 6 altogether, including our town arborist.
Yeah, currently there's 5, but that includes the town arborist who does just tree permits and the tree board. So he's not, not reviewing.
He's quite busy, but
Oh, yeah.
he doesn't really have time to do much else other
He's
than.
not
One person's committed to GSI, right?
Well, GIS is now under the
IT.
Lenny, yes, under IT. So that's not my, because we realized that she did much more than just planning. So it made more sense to put her under IT.
She coordinates with all the public safety for it.
Actually, she doesn't do a whole lot for us anymore. She does most of it for public safety and stormwater and stuff like that.
And that new individual will just help you keep your head above water and not to lose ground, but it wouldn't speed up the permitting process or anything.
I mean, hopefully we could get it where it would speed up the permitting process, but I mean, really, if we don't get another person, yeah, I mean, we're going to start drowning in permits. But with that person, hopefully we and continually fine tuning our permit portal to get that more streamlined as we understand it better. We can work with them to get that more streamlined. Hopefully we will be able to increase our efficiency, but it really is just to keep us hopefully at the same, not getting longer, but hopefully, yes, eventually once that person gets fully trained and we can continue to work on our permitting system, hopefully we would be able to increase our efficiency as well.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Hello. So I was requesting a network administrator position, mainly for security, cybersecurity. With the recent threats of the ransomware, I envision this person not only administering the network with the IP addresses and DHCP and everything, but also a big role would be cybersecurity, ransomware prevention, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention. We recently have signed on with SLED with their cybersecurity department, so this person would probably be a liaison from us to SLED as well. And that's the main reason I'm asking for this position, but also with possibly the pending move of the court that's building a whole new network wherever they end up. So there's going to be plenty of security and CJIS requirements and everything for that as well.
Lenny, could you give us some of the anecdotes that you've given me about the number of times we have people trying to get into our system, like in a day or in a night or in a week or something? You've given me some.
Yeah, mainly it's through email, and it's probably 95% of the email we receive is either spam or malware trying to get in. We have many, and I administer a lot of that right now, which is fine, but we have many rules and things to prevent a lot of the cyber attacks. I don't want to go into a public meeting and tell you all the systems that we have right now, but there are plenty of people trying to penetrate our network. And even the pipeline, the recent pipeline, they haven't said exactly what caused it or how it was caused, but all the ones I've read and analyzed in the past, it's usually an employee clicking on a link or an attachment that, and sometimes it'll ask for their credentials, their username and password, and they'll put it in there thinking it's a legitimate document. An email could look like from somebody you know. And that may be what caused this other one. I don't know. And they end up paying 75 Bitcoins or whatever and all kind of stuff. So it's a mess. And we don't want to be in that position. But I'm not saying this position will eliminate that, but I do need someone that stays on top of that and tries to prevent any kind of the tax like that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The only other positions were 3 fire captains, which I believe Chief Waring explained, but he can ask, he can explain. And then if you'll remember, we are approving 5 hospitality officers, but that comes out of H-Tech, so that's not in the general fund budget.
Yeah, the 3 fire captains will be for our new station we're building on Miles Jamison Road. Basically, we've been hiring firefighters over the course of the last 3 years, 3 to 5 years in anticipation of opening this new station. And this last person will fill the final leg of that staff, and then it's the boss of the station basically. So that's the captain position, will be the boss of that station when we open it. So.
And I will say the captain's positions and the planner 1 positions are not approved. They're not funded in the budget immediately. The planner position, because we won't have a space for them immediately. And the fire positions, because we thought we wouldn't have a truck immediately, but we're not sure when that's going to happen. So they're funded to come online October 1. So he can start trying to hire people and then have them come on October 1. And the planner is funded October 1 also, but again, it depends on if we have to build a little cubby for them, when we can get someone to do that and how long that takes. Because we could hire someone tomorrow, but they'd be sitting in here maybe. You know, we don't have a place to put them.
We've kind of shifted our plans a little bit too. If you guys remember, we approved a fire truck last year over the summer. It's on order right now for Station 6. We're delayed in the construction of the building. So, and with, pushing the officers off until later in the year, we've actually, the truck request we requested in this year's budget, we're going to put it in service. We're going to put the one that's coming in a month in service now. And the one that's we're going to order will be for the new station actually. So we just kind of played, shifting the shells, if you will, to kind of make it all work and not have a brand new truck coming in that, it's not ready to come in. It's actually ahead of schedule now. So the new truck is from what it was supposed to be. So questions? Thank you.
But real quick, just so everybody, the bid opening for the Miles Road Station was supposed to be.
It's supposed to be June 6th. We've actually pushed that out to June 22nd. We had a proposal meeting last, was that Tuesday? And a lot of the contractors asked if we could extend give them some more time to work on the proposal. So we kind of jamming them up a little bit. So, all right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I have another question just about the budget in general.
Going back to that 5.3 million in transfers in, I think you said, Ms. Vance, that the 2.7 million of the 5.3 comes from financing. Can you explain that?
Yes, sir. So we would be lease purchasing any items that are eligible for lease purchase. Because our fund balance has, our unassigned fund balance has gone below $3 million. We don't have fund balance to purchase the capital needs like police vehicles or fire trucks. So we would be financing that through a lease purchase agreement for 4 years. And there would be a yearly payment for that. But that allows us to still keep up with the capital needs for each of the departments. But but without being able to purchase it through just plain general fund balance.
I'm sure I'll have a follow-up on that, but it'll be later. So the last year that we have a completed audit for is 2019, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And what was the unassigned fund balance at the end of 2019?
Give me 2 seconds because I think it's actually in this file. So if you'll remember, you've got your, you have $3 million that is an emergency fund balance that you have, and we use some of that for addressing the pandemic, but we actually have received almost full reimbursement for that through the CARES Act and FEMA. And then you're required to keep 20% of your last year's, I believe, revenues as another portion of your fund balance, and that's an assigned fund balance. And then what's left is what you have as unassigned, which you could use for certain things.
I understand.
Okay, hold on. So as of 12, Let me get myself straight here. I need my glasses. 12/31/2020, the projected fund balance for the general fund was $2,402,887. The projected fund balance for the hospitality tax was $2,562,438. And for the general fund, that is the unassigned fund balance. That's not your committed, your assigned.
Well, and is that consistent with the fund balance policy that this council has adopted?
Yes, sir. So again, you've got your, you have, I believe let me make sure I'm reading this right. Yes, you still have your 20% and you have $3 million. But the portion that's unassigned that you have that you could do something with is $2.4 million. So your committed balance as of 12/31/2020 was $9,494,532. So that's committed as in your 20% and your $3 million. So what's left of after that is $2,402,887.
And I realize that we're, I guess, almost 5/6 of the way through this budget year, but at this point, we certainly didn't plan to use any fund balance. And it doesn't, I guess we'll get a financial report for May pretty soon, but you're not aware of us being able to, not being able, but being forced to use any of fund balance for this 6-month budget.
No, sir.
And there's nothing in this budget that's before us that plans to use any fund balance.
Not for general fund. You're planning to use some of your stormwater fund balance?
I'm only interested in the
Yeah,
general
okay.
fund
Yeah.
balance.
General fund? No, sir. No. There's literally just $2.4 million there.
Rebecca, does our budget include money we expect to get from the federal government for?
Yes, sir. So we have budgeted for like the American Rescue Plan?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So let me get back to that one. We have budgeted approximately, let me make sure I'm on the last page, $1.4 million for capital projects that we believe could be funded. These are capital projects that if we find out that we cannot fund them with ARP money, they will just not happen, or we will search for a grant or some other source, or push them off till next year. The budget is also balanced using some portion for revenue replacement. Our finance director has done the calculation utilized by the Department of Treasury to determine what our revenue loss was over last year. And we can use that as a direct replacement for that revenue loss. You can use ARP funds. Okay. The only other thing that we funded, because we felt absolutely certain through the guidance we've received so far that it was eligible, is the EMT program through the fire department. So we have budgeted buying the extra vehicle that they had asked for that was going to be funded through the general fund. We're funded purchasing it through ARP, and we're funding the actual positions that are on there and funding continuing to operate the QRV that we operated during COVID, because it's a good response to COVID, to where you're not sending trucks to people that potentially have COVID-19, and you're minimizing kind of your exposure.
Thank you.
I will say we've been very conservative in talking about it and thinking about it, because every week we continue to get new guidance. I mean, sat in a class yesterday. We haven't accepted any of our funds yet. And until we're sure what we can and can't do, we're not going to propose to use any of those funds, and any plan would have to be approved by council. And then by August 31st, I believe we have to put in one report, and then by October 31st, we have to do another report, because we're a metro city. Those are the two requirements. But the report can be that we haven't done anything and we haven't expended any funds. I think everybody's just really cautious in what we can do with those funds, and no one's being really forthcoming. There's not a list that says, yeah, you can fund a sidewalk, or yeah, you can fund this. They've been very clear you can't fund road projects, but then you can fund water, sewer, broadband, and stormwater funds. So it's a fun time.
Let me ask you a question. The American Rescue Plan, I know it's specific to certain needs that municipalities have. And so we have to follow those guidelines with the use of the money, even though we're projecting the use of, we don't have the money yet. But there's a couple of things in there that you and I talked about, which I won't bring up at this point. Hopefully we'll be able to fund some of those things too. They aren't expensive, but something we need to.
Programs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had, I've asked Michael to kind of head up keeping all the ideas together, and we've talked with all of the department heads and just continue to keep a spreadsheet of ideas that we think could be funded. And as we continue to get guidance, we'll put together a plan that has to come back to you guys to be approved, and then we'll have to submit reports to the federal government. So yeah, whatever and however we spend that funds will have to be approved by council.
Thank you.
Rebecca, you noted that some of that 5.3 million transfer in will come from the TIF, the Midtown TIF. Is that correct? Or is it the Oak Brook TIF?
Hold on. I believe both. I think Andrew's printing copies for you guys, but he could give a little bit more specific of that. But there's I believe some of it is both TIFs.
Can you give us just a brief update on where we are with the Midtown TIF? Is it going to require further council votes, for example? And just kind of what's the expected timeline to actually generate any revenues from the Midtown TIF?
Yes, sir. So I have finished the draft of the redevelopment plan, and Theo DeBose has reviewed it, given me comments. I've made changes to the changes he asked for and sent it back to him. So I hope to have that back maybe by today or at least Tuesday. It will take 2 readings of council to create a TIF district. One of those readings will have to be a public hearing. The 2 readings can't be consecutive. You'll have first reading, and then you'll give a 45-day notice to the other taxing entities so that they know when the public hearing is. So my hope is maybe to have the first reading of that in June. And that will give the other taxing entities time to either work out an intergovernmental agreement with us, which we've already worked on with the school district, or to just not respond at all. So our hope and the schedule we have now is receiving actual funds in August or September, because after you do first and second reading of the TIF ordinance, you then have to do first and second reading of a bond ordinance to borrow money. So then you go through that process. At second reading, we will probably have, at second reading of the TIF district, we will have first reading of the bond ordinance to kind of make all these things flow together. And our financial advisor for the town has said, once you have second reading, it takes about 4 to 6 weeks to actually get money. That's actually good timing, because we think that the permit for Maple Street, we're hoping to get that any, June or July. They actually got had comments, and we sent back responses to those comments last week to DOT. So once we get the permit, then we need to bid that project out. So the hope is that the bidding of the project and accepting of bids coincides with when we receive the money, and we kind of know what we're talking about. I think part of the issue before with the roads funds that we did is that we borrowed money before we knew how much any of the projects were going to cost, and the projects ended up costing more than we even borrowed. So this is to try to mitigate that, but I think that's the timing that Russ and I are working on. Obviously, DOT will give us a permit whenever they decide to give us a permit, but that's our process for the TIF ordinance and the bond money, as long as council agrees with that.
Well, and that was kind of my next line of questions was, do you know, I mean, Andrew is not here. Do we know of the 5.3 million being transferred in, what number we're planning on getting from not the Oak Brook TIF, which is already in effect, but the Midtown TIF?
It would be the money associated with the 2 road projects that are on that list. So Maple Street and Cedar Street. So it's 6 million for Maple and 1 million for Cedar. So if the TIF doesn't happen, then those projects on this list don't get funded.
Well, but the total transfer in is 5.3 million. I'm not really, if projects happen, they don't happen. We deal with that later. But we've given first reading to a budget, and I assume you're going to want us give second reading in June before the July 1 first day of the budget year. I'm just trying to determine whether or not this budget's actually in balance. And I don't think, I'm not an accountant, I don't think we should count revenues from the Midtown TIF, given that in order for that money to be borrowed, it's going to take 4 separate votes of council. We can't pass a budget and then bind ourselves how we're going to vote on first reading and second reading for the TIF and first reading and second reading on the bond ordinance. So I just think whatever money out of that 5.3 million, it can't be the 6 million because it's some percentage of 5.3 million needs to come out of the budgets, because to get that money, we've dictated to this council how we're going to vote on future votes. I just don't think that's proper.
Well, I think those funds are associated with capital projects. And again, if you don't have the funding, then you don't do the project. So it's but yes, well, I'll have Andrew give a complete breakdown of what that 5.3 equals for you.
I think you said 2.7 is the lease purchase, so about
Yes,
half of it is the lease purchase. So and you got the American Rescue Plan and grants and the transfer from hospitality, local hat tax. So I'm assuming the TIF money is, well, it's certainly less than 2.5 million, but it may be 500,000. The Midtown TIF might be 200,000. I just don't know, but I just don't think we should adopt a budget that's counting revenues that we haven't actually voted to do yet.
Yes, sir. So we can ask Andrew to give you guys a list of each of those to tell you exactly how much is coming from each one. What we did in the capital funding sheets, and I know it's probably a little confusing, but I've asked staff to go through all of the capital projects and all of the capital expenditures that they would need in a year. And we now have a 5-year plan for that that'll roll into our CIP for our impact fees. So then we just go through and try to figure out how you're going to fund them. Hat tax, you don't have to approve the hospitality tax budget. So that's something that will be funded by hospitality tax. But yeah, I completely understand, and we can get that to you. A breakdown of it, because I'm sure Andrew has it all in his head. Actually, he probably has a spreadsheet. I'm not kidding. He probably doesn't have it in his head. Knowing him. Anybody have anything else?
I have a question about the stormwater fund.
Mm-hmm.
Since the increase in each residential is going up from 4 to 8, and then Dorchester County is going to be taking the $16 off of the yearly bill, is that going to coincide at the same time, or is there going to be any overlapping that residents
We'll have to pay?
Yes.
It should not, because remember now we charge with taxes. So the tax will come off of Dorchester County and go on with us. So there shouldn't be any overlap.
With the property tax bill.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, and the solid waste fund, I see that the amount is going up per resident, $27.44 for the year. I don't recall us talking about adding capital equipment into that, because I see that includes capital equipment to be utilized for solid waste removal.
Yeah. The projection for the amount of increase that was requested by the Public Works Department that we worked out to cover the capital equipment, that's how that number came up with. That's how we came up with that number. So the proposed increase includes the cost for the single stream recycling and those capital equipment purchases. So the hope is then, or it does, the idea is then your capital for solid waste, providing that service is then paid for through that fee and not paid for by the general fund.
Okay, I can just see residents asking about that because before we were saying the projection was going to be just slightly $1 more per month, I think. Isn't that what we had said, Russ?
So the 2744 increase divided by 12 months, is that what I'd need to do to determine that number for y'all? So it'd be a $2.28 increase per month. Write that down. The only thing I do want to mention to council is the hospitality tax fund. As I put in the memo to you guys, there is $105,163 that are not allocated. And again, the hat tax fund does not have to be budgeted or adopted by council on a yearly basis, but we try to at least budget it internally. That 105 could be used for projects or could be used to awarding those to local nonprofits. So that's something that council will need to decide, but there is 105 in there and there is, that's what's left over after all of the expenditures that council has said they want to fund, including the officers, the hospitality officers. So we will look for some direction from you guys on how you want to handle that at some point, or now, or whenever you'd like to give us.
Rebecca, how much did we distribute of the local hat tax to organization nonprofits last year?
Give me 2 seconds. It's in here too. I believe it's 243. Give me a second.
Was it that much?
Hold on. Spend the many sheets of paper that I have. Give me a second. I think I sent this out to you guys too, so if I can't find it in my file, I can search through that. It was 220 or 240. And this other file too.
And that would not been, that's not in this current 6-month budget. It would have been
Yeah, the 2019, it would have been the
2019
for 2020.
And the reason I'm asking, I mean, just to kind of, I know I missed had to miss the budget retreat, but I listened online or went back and watched it a couple times. The prior budget retreat that we had, I think in October, over at Hilton Garden in Nexton, I know we had a discussion about weaning these organizations off of local hat tax money. And you know, this 105, I just kind of want to know what that looks like in relation to what was distributed last year. If it really is half or less than what was distributed last year, then I wouldn't have a problem making $100,000 worth of distributions this year, but with the idea that next year's might be 50. But I just, off the top of my head, I didn't realize we were distributing over 200,000 a year.
Yes.
If we need that money to balance the budget, then I think we need to balance.
Well, if we need $105,000, if we're scrambling to find $105,000 to balance a $43 million.
Every little bit helps.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I hope we're not in that position.
There we go. The 2019 distribution was $240,000.
And when that's,
Searching through everything.
and that would be the 2019 budget that we adopted at the,
It was approved at the end of the year in 2019, and it was the allocation that was supposed to go to them in 2020.
okay.
That makes sense?
All right, so that's,
And
so is
I
that,
might be wrong, so if anybody wants to correct me, feel free.
so is that part of the, so that actually was part of this 6-month 2020 budget then?
No, we're in 2021.
All right. What did we, all right, so in 2019, we approved 240. That was prior to this council taking office. Did we not take any action on local hat tax?
For the
Yes.
6 month, no, we did not. There was
Okay.
no distribution then.
Okay, because we discussed it at for some time in that budget retreat at Hilton Garden Inn, but that's, okay, that's, I could do either. I could vote, if we've got a pressing need for this 105,000, if it's actually gonna make an impact, whether it's balancing the budget or funding some necessary project that isn't gonna get funded, I'm fine with using it internally. If that's not the case, personally, I like the idea of going ahead and distributing to organizations because we cutting it by more than 50%, and we're doing what we kind of said we were going to do, which was to wean them off of it. But if we needed to balance the budget or some other necessary reason, then so be it.
I don't believe that, that 105 is left over. That's the surplus plus after we've funded the things that we've requested to fund for hospitality tax that again, you can't fund everything. It has to be things that are tourism related.
Right. Well, and I don't have a motion today or anything. I just
Yeah.
kind of wanted to remind everybody we talked about in October of 2020, we talked about continuing to fund organizations with local hat tax, but at a reduced level to kind of put these organizations on notice. And they still have the statewide A tax to go after, but apparently as much as $250,000 over time was not going to be available to them.
And if you'll remember, that $250,000 included the allocation to Dream, which is now just listed as a professional service.
That's why it was so much higher than I remember.
And the minute we leave, I'm going to find that dang sheet of paper. But
Rebecca, let me ask you a question about hospitality money. We talked about giving the police department some of that money to fund offices downtown.
Yes.
For extra security.
that is included,
So you've
the
got
full
that in there?
expenditure for them. So salary and benefits is all included in there, and the minimal equipment they'll need. Chief has not asked for vehicles or anything for them, so they'll be on their feet or on a bike.
So that's a done deal.
Yes, sir. That's, that is in there. Anybody got anything else?
I'll move to adjourn.
I
Are we adjourning or are we suspending?
I would move that we recess until after the 11:30 meeting adjourns. Just in case we are able to get a little more detailed numbers from Andrew. If not, we can come back in and adjourn. So with your
I'll
permission,
withdraw my motion to.
I'll move that we recess this budget meeting essentially to reconvene at adjournment of our posted 11:30 meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded that we recess until after our next meeting. All in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.